Hey guys, Deathslayer Magic here, and if you saw me open my Fat Pack / bundle and one booster box live on stream the other day, cool, thanks for showing up. That was a pretty wild box, I'm gonna be honest. I think that video is actually still posted, you can still check it out on my channel. But I noticed something interesting. There was an insert that wasn't normally in the Fat Pack, and if you're new to Magic, it's what they call a bundle now. They used to call it a Fat Pack, so everybody still does. Oh no, we can't offend fat people by mentioning the word fat because they don't know that they're fat and don't want to hear it. Like, I'm 210 pounds. I'm slightly overweight. I could stand to lose like 25 pounds. I'm fat. Like, good. The more I hear it, the more I'm going to go to the gym. You know what I mean? But yeah, inside the Fat Pack, inside the like poster sleeve thing, there was a very large size insert. I mean, it had to have been like 8x7. Saying, well, one, go to thegatherer.wizards.com, which, yeah, if you're a new player that has never heard of that, you should. It's a good place to look up cards. And then the other side was mtgstory.com. Well, then I thought, oh, well, everybody's wondering what the hell's going on with this story. Why haven't we gotten a chapter yet? Why haven't we heard about a book yet? Where did it go? The story's missing. And then to make matters even weirder, they threw up just like an absolute summary, end to end, like full spoilers and everything of what happens. And it was like about 2 pages in a web browser. I thought, well, okay, I mean, the game's very story heavy. I would say it deserves more than that. So that was clearly not what they intended from the beginning. Now, I don't know if you bothered to head over to mtgstory.com, but it's literally just the wrong story. I actually kind of skimmed and got very confused by this on live stream. It was a little bit embarrassing, but a lot of people kind of got confused by this. So I don't feel that bad. I was like, oh, they waited for people to like open the Fat Packs to reveal that there are 2 books and they're written by Jenna Helland and okay, cool, they're ebooks, they're going straight to ebook. No. That was Theros the last time around. In fact, I even made fun of the fact that I'm like, they really named them Theros Godsend Part 1 and Part 2? Godsend got destroyed in the last storyline and is not anywhere in this one. Which is an absolute shame because that's one of my favorite artifacts of all time. But actually, it turns out if you check out the links to Amazon to buy the ebooks, they already have like hundreds of reviews and are priced and have a launch date. And I'm like, oh, these are just the last Theros books. What? Okay, so people aren't just suspecting something is amiss. This is proof, okay? The insert says, follow Elspeth as she battles her way out of the underworld, mtgstory.com. That's not what's on mtgstory.com. It's like a last second, oh crap, we have to put something linked to the books from several years ago that have nothing to do with her escaping the underworld. Now combine that with the fact that the posted summary from earlier this month on Daily MTG, that was effectively the storyline, it had no introduction and no epilogue, no notes. It was just like, here's the story. That's it, no context. So putting 2 and 2 together here, everybody online is asking, what the hell happened to this story? It obviously they had one and it was pulled. It was canceled. It was, I don't know. So the obvious thing that a lot of people are pointing to is that the War of the Spark books were terrible. Absolutely terrible. The first one was terribly written. I didn't hear much about the second one, but it's the same author and wrote it at the same time. I could guess, but all we heard about with that one was, oh my god, Chandra and her orientation, because that's the most important part of the book. I mean, it is liberal dumbasses with nothing better to do, I guess. But basically, both books were received poorly because they were awful. And the whole idea of this, like, 10-year-long storyline wrapping up with, hey, pay us and you gotta read an ebook. I mean, the length of it, the price, the platform shift, like where you had to buy it, the quality of it, everything. Everybody had issues with everything about it. It was a disaster. Just get somebody who knows what they're doing, write the story and post it online like you always do. I mean, I know they did novels back in the, time, I don't know when, but they did it for a while and people bought them and they enjoyed them, all the lore people. Cool, well, they didn't do that since I've been playing, so that's not what I'm used to, and a lot of people since at least RTR are new to the game. I mean, look at like the player numbers. So you can't just paywall the story and then make it absolute shit. That's a bad combination all around. So people are pointing to that whole situation and saying, that's why they pulled whatever this was. This must have been another ebook. Maybe it was from the same author, which, I mean, wouldn't they have pulled the second war book? But at that point, like, it was already written and they already announced it. So that would be a little too transparent, although, I mean, come on, as if we can't see what's going on right now. But there's one thing standing in the way of that logic, and it's Throne of Eldraine, the wildered or wildered, or what I still insist it's not a real word, quest by Kate Elliott, which currently has like amazing ratings, 4.3 out of 5 with over 100 ratings on Amazon. All I heard from people is it's somewhere between good and very good. I mean, I really couldn't see many complaints. I mean, any complaints were actually kind of valid, like, oh, my favorite character wasn't in it. Like, okay, yeah, I mean, that's a reason to not buy it or read it. Oh, and it focused on Oko, who completely and utterly ruined the game. I mean, some people somehow projected that into the book, which, actually that kind of makes sense. And I mean, I will say they really appear to have lowered the price. I mean, it's $3.99, and I believe it was at launch too. That's a little cheaper than the War of the Spark books, to say the least. But thankfully, Kate Elliott knows what the hell she's doing, unlike what's his face who wrote the other two disasters. Oh, Greg Weisman and $13.99 are actually the answers. I actually figured you'd probably want to know that. So I think because it takes potentially really, really long to write a book, like finish it, then edit it, then like check it for lore accuracy, and then like approve it. If you're thinking, well, clearly I didn't do that with Greg's book, Wizards was the one that made him change what he wrote about Chandra, and they made him say that she is straight, according to him. They or someone at Hasbro, either Wizards or someone at Hasbro, made him change it, according to Greg Weisman. Do not forget that. So anyway, yes, they do review the book, I would think, before it goes out and represents their company as the official canon lore. So theoretically, to have a safe buffer in case there was revisions needed or whatever, the storyline for Theros Beyond Death was almost definitely completed by like 3 to 6 months ago. Like basically, once the cards and their flavor text were approved and finalized, that's right around when the book would have been finalized, I would think. And that was quite a while ago. So whoever wrote this, however it was going to be released, ebook, free on the web, chapter sections, whatever it was done. And they had enough time to make the decision to not replace Kate Elliott's book for Throne of Eldraine with some BS summary. So if they were like, wow, War of the Spark was a disaster, screw these books, oh my gosh, let's cancel this and cancel this just because the whole book thing is tarnished now or whatever. I mean, it's literally not Greg Weisman writing it, so I'd say take a second shot at it. But if they were going to cancel it, they would have started with her book. That's what I think. So my theory is either Greg Weisman wrote poorly the Theros Beyond Death story as a book, and it was terrible, and they cut it. And then clearly in the couple months did not have time to rewrite it. Or somebody else wrote it and it was terrible. Or they found the backlash with Chandra and there was like a story point that they just could not possibly fix. Something that they think might have been equally offensive and they just had to like last second pull it. That kind of makes sense. I mean, with the timeline and the set being 3 months apart, from each other, I could see them still releasing Kate's book and then killing this one. But it does seem more logical that if they're just like, screw the whole book thing, we're just going to post summaries and rethink this whole thing, they would have started with Kate's book because there would have been time to just write a summary. It literally would take like a day or two. So why was the Throne of Eldraine book allowed to be released and not this one? That is what everybody's wondering, and there's just dead silence from Wizards. So the speculation is running rampant on social media. Oh my gosh. So the obvious theory, and there's like no evidence, for this except for like self-evident, like it makes sense logic, is that Chandra was somehow involved in this. They somehow removed her from the set, which, I mean, wouldn't we have seen a suspiciously Chandra-esque pyromancer? I mean, I have trouble buying this, but somehow she was in the book, but not on the cards. And she was like going off for half the book about how much she loves men and can't stand dating women and how much of a mistake it was. Because like at that point, the book would be irreparable. You'd have to remove so much of the story and gut it. It would be a 60-page book. It makes sense that like when they went back and like super double reverse retconned Chandra because of some SJW outrage mob, after they themselves made Greg change it in the story, that if anything that they just changed at the last second had to do with this book, they had to pull it. Like, I follow the logic, I get it, it's just, it all involved Chandra, and you might have noticed she's not here, she's not in the plane, she's not in the story, she's not on the cards. And I mean, if they tried to replace her in the artwork, they'd almost have to just draw like a hat and a mustache on someone and say, that's not Chandra, that's Chad. Let's try to think of a male name close enough to Chandra. Oh, that's Chad the Pyromancer Planeswalker. Yeah, you haven't heard of him. You can't just have her on like 20 cards as a main character of the story, the book, and the cards, and then like replace her real quick. I don't buy that. I don't think Chandra was in the book, if it was a book and if that's what happened. But it is kind of funny. I think a lot of the people suggesting that are kind of being sarcastic. Just like one of the people said, well, clearly they pulled it because it turns out Elspeth had never been into girls. Her crushes were mostly the brawny and decidedly male types, which is like word for word the quote that people took issue with from the last book. And by people, I mean I barely consider them people, SJW dumbasses. Now, here's one thing that I couldn't confirm, but a lot of people seem to support this. So one person I found saying this, and nobody contradicted it. And I'm tempted to go buy one just to investigate this. But they say when the core set M20 came out, those fat packs had another insert with similar wording. Now, I never bought one of those. So it was like, hey, M20, core set 2020, has a storyline. Go read it. And then that was mysteriously missing too. Now, we've had core sets with storylines. That has been a thing. But I think if I recall, we've also had ones that didn't. It depends what you consider origins and that kind of stuff. So I think that flew under a lot of people's radar because they're just like, oh, a core set. It doesn't have a story. It's basically like a reprint set almost. So I guess you could say sometimes they do like a historic look back and it's like the characters featured. It's more like just a bunch of stuff thrown together, like some lore bits and stuff. It's like Pottermore as opposed to the actual Harry Potter books. It's just like, oh, here's some additional stuff. It's not really a story, but it is story and it is lore and whatever. So if people aren't looking for a story, they aren't going to realize it's missing, except that apparently this one person says there was an insert saying, hey, Core Set 2020 has a story, go read it, at I guess mtgstory.com or something. Now, unfortunately, the person reporting this doesn't specifically say that the insert said mtgstory.com, but they've used that domain before. But the thing is, they tend to kind of like turn it off once in a while. In fact, I remember like trying to go there when I first initially saw something about it, and it was too early before the release of a set, so it just like didn't resolve. Or it was just like a dummy page or an error page or something. I distinctly remember seeing that happen. And according to the couple snapshots on the Wayback Machine, that's what it was through most of 2019. So, I mean, if they did something for 2020, they covered it up, or it just never resolved in the first place. Kind of like the whole, go download the Portal app. Just kidding, it's not done yet. Like, I think those links just didn't work, or they went to some generic page or whatever. So I assume that's what they did with this as well. So now 2 stories have disappeared. And yet, the Throne of Eldraine story was still released. So did they finally say, product fatigue, what are we going to cut? Okay, the books are super unnecessary. But then again, it's like the lore people are going to buy them. It's literally the cost of 1 pack. And some author put a bunch of work into it, and now you're going to be like referencing lore that the staff knows but was never publicly released, and that'll be confusing. Like, in my opinion, it would be the last thing that they would cut unless there is a distinct actual problem with it. So what are the odds that the M20 story and the Theros Beyond Death stories both had unfixable problems that had to be canceled at the last second? It seems unlikely, so now we're left with right where we started. Where did these stories go? What happened? What were they? How were they going to be released? We have nothing, basically, because all of these logically fall apart, all the excuses. And so, as far as I can tell, nobody has any actual legitimate thing that sounds credible as far as an explanation for where they went. Although I will say, remember, Core Set 2020 was about Chandra. The book right before it had some Chandra-related issues. They might have pulled it just to be safe, or they might have pulled it after they read a couple lines and were like, oh crap, that's another reference to this, oops. Or just whatever. So that one, I mean, that one kind of makes sense. But then this one's awfully distant from that. I mean, we're talking half a year for them to fix this from there, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, rewrites are rewrites. They're not that hard, but if they already paid the author or whatever, I mean, I could see how you could have enough issues that it would get dragged out and you're like, we just can't finish this in time. Last second, kill it. But the timeline just seems so unusual to me because remember, this insert saying follow Elspeth as she battles her way out of the underworld, do it on mtgstory.com, and then changing it so it's just a link to some antique-ass Theros ebooks. They had time to pull the book, or whatever it was, but they didn't have time to change this at the printing. Like, literally not even, like, change the wording, the art or something. Like, tell them not to include it. Like, just, even if it's already printed, while they're packaging it, tell them not to put it in. And that would have happened a bit ago. I mean, the time delay on that is not real clear to anybody, and it varies based on how busy the printer is. But it's several months ahead of time, in theory, and then they're just warehoused until then. But I think it would have been after the book totally and utterly bombed. And it probably would have been around the time that the M20 story was pulled as well. So to me, the fact that this insert went out at all means that this was very last second. Well, in fact, mtgstory.com does not even link to the article posted on January 10th of the Theros Beyond Death story summary. I mean, it would almost look like they did it on purpose if it at least did that. I mean, some people just say, oh, wow, that's a short story, and then move on with their lives. Like, whatever. I guess they're not doing a long story for this one. Like, I'd think it was suspicious because I know what the stories are like. But yeah, this is just, this is weird. That's why I wanted to make a video on this. This is so unusual. So if anybody has any staff leaks, any statements, any further evidence, I would love to hear about it down in the comment section. So would everybody. And sparing that, oh, you already know what website you're on and what the comment section is for. Get out the absolute conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat, absolute unwarranted wonton speculation down in the comment section about what you think happened to the story. Did the Illuminati sneak in a bunch of New World Order references to the story? It was caught a week before this went out, and they absolutely buried it. Okay, I'm kind of having fun now, but that does remind me of one more thing I should mention. Remember how early before the release of War of the Spark that they hyped up the fact that there was a book? And remember the last time that they did a chapter-based story, how long before the release of the set they started releasing the first couple chapters, or at the very least talking about it? That doesn't mesh with the timelines that we're seeing with what actually happened. So they appear to have known to not mention that there was a book or a story quite a while ahead of time, but not long enough ahead of time to do something else with this insert in the fat pack. That actually kind of narrows it down, but it almost just seems like a contradiction. Like those two time periods don't mesh so well with each other. But I don't know, it's all kind of fuzzy. So I would love it if some big-mouthed, who cares, like artist or contractor or a very angry book author or someone at Wizards who's a staff member made a comment about what the hell happened. If so, ooh, please do leave a comment mentioning it, linking to it, anything. I would love to hear that because this mystery needs to be solved. So anyway, thanks for diving down this mystery rabbit hole with me, and I will see you guys next video.